Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 after a very fun Silverstone qualifying session ahead of tomorrow's big race. So firstly, before we go into any of that, make sure you subscribe. That's the rules. You got to subscribe. But let's get into it because that was a lot of fun. Let's start with Q1. And now we've had wet weather all throughout today, in the F3, F2, in the practice session as well, a bit wet. So the very start of Q1 was mixed weather, and you could tell that by the tyres that the drivers chose to have, because it seemed like the majority went for the softs, but there were a few who also went for the wet ones. Albon was in the pits on the inters. We saw the camera was inside the garage with him on the inters, but just as he was about to go out, they changed their mind, put him onto the dries. Both Ferraris are on the wets. The intermediates, not the wets. Both Haas cars are on the inters, and Logan Sargent was on the inters as well. All of them would eventually change over to the softs because the softs were the quicker tyre, even in the kind of damp conditions. And it still was a struggle for a lot of people, including Lewis Hamilton, who on his first time lap in Q1 spun it into the gravel. Good car control, Lowe's managed to get it through the gravel back onto track and was able to continue with the rest of the session. Logan Sargent reports that it's starting to rain a little bit, which it was. You could see, especially in the third sector, in the final 2, 3, 4 corners, people really struggling. So it was a mix of the drying track mixed with very strong wind as well. That last little section there, people really, really struggling to keep the car straight, keep it going in the direction they wanted to. Albon massively struggled, but still managed to put his car into P10. Now, times were tumbling massively as the track just continued to get drier and drier and drier. Nick de Vries had an unsafe release as Oscar Piastri was going down the pit lane. There'll probably be a fine handed out for that. Logan Sargent went off-road at one point, hit a bump somewhere and flew through the air. Albon had a time deleted due to track limits. Track limits making their comeback after their starring role in the Austrian Grand Prix. Now we see Kevin Magnussen was stopped on track across the road from the pit lane entry. His car had just stopped. That brings out a red flag with 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes to go in Q1. Track drying very quickly, meaning that everyone would get about a lap after the red flag to do whatever they wanted to do. Now Perez was in a very difficult position here. I think he was like 15th, 16th place, just above the drop zone. And Red Bull seemed to think that the red flag wouldn't last long, so they parked him at the end of the pit lane. The red flag lasted a bit longer than they thought it would, because not only did it take a while for them to clear the car, then when they cleared the car, instead of announcing, it'll start in a minute, they announced it would start in 3 minutes. So Perez was just sat at the end of the pit lane for a good 5-6 minutes in basically just a puddle as his tyres got colder and colder and colder and colder and colder, and I think that would have an effect on him as we continue through qualifying. There is impeding from Zhou on Ocon. I think that'll be a penalty. Zhou will probably start from the back. Max Verstappen hit the pit wall as he tried to exit his garage. Had to be rolled back in, change the front wing, send him back out again. I think that is his first mistake of the year. So there you go, everyone. He is human. He does make mistakes. There it was. I hope you enjoyed it. There won't be any more for the rest of the year. But the session does restart with 3 minutes to go. And we see Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton battling through Sector 1 and Sector 2 of the Silverstone track. A throwback to 2021, but this one doesn't end in a crash. This was just on their outlap. This is just for track position. They're battling like this. It was fantastic to see. Now, here's how much the track had changed from when the red flag was thrown to when the session was restarted. So the Williams cars, their fastest laps during the wet period got them 18th and 19th. Their first laps they did when the session was restarted was good enough for first and second. For a brief moment, Q1 was a 1-2 for the Williams team, which is incredible stuff. Everyone setting times, just all over the place. People setting fast times. Bottas's car breaks down just towards the end, but he was still able to get through into Q2. But the ones who were out, firstly Magnussen, P20, he didn't get his car broke down. Obviously, didn't get set a fast time at the end. Nick de Vries was in 19th. Zhou was in 18th. Now, Zhou, I imagine, though, will get a penalty for impeding. Yuki goes 17th. And Sergio Perez, 16th place. The question going into this qualifying session was, could Sergio Perez actually get through to Q3? 4 races previous, he hasn't been able to get into Q3. Can he get into Q3? The question should have been, can he get into Q2? Because the answer was no. He's out in the first section of qualifying. His tyres, that's the only thing I can think of. I don't think it is just a lack of talent from Sergio. I don't think it's anything like that. I just think he was left out there for ages. His tyres must have been freezing. He just couldn't get any grip, and that's what we saw here. Just not a good enough lap. 16th place for Sergio. Once again, will be damage limitations for him driving around tomorrow. Unbelievably, I think as much as people point the finger and say his qualifying is awful, I think his race pace has been very good, and that's shown. He was on the podium last time out. He's still second place in the drivers' standings. He's still doing well in the races. Just this little qualifying rut, whatever it is, it's not going well for Sergio. Into Q2 now. And it is a drier session. The track isn't fully dry, and DRS is actually not available yet because it's still not fully dry. And we get some track limits again. Sargent had his time deleted. Stroll had a time deleted. At the end of Q2, though, the guys who were out, firstly is Bottas, didn't take part in the session due to his car breaking down at the end of Q1. Logan Sargent goes out 14th. Ocon is 13th. That was quite a surprise. Stroll couldn't get through. He is 12th. And then Nico Hülkenberg, 11th place. He's had a few good runs getting into Q3, but it wasn't meant to be this time. Still a great time for him, though, in 11th place. And then we're in to Q3. And this is a fully dry session. DRS is back enabled. After everyone had set their first lap time, here is how our top 10 looked. Lando Norris was in 10th. It was Russell 9th, Gasly 8th, Albon 6th, Albon 7th, Alonso 6th. Sainz was in the top 5, then it was Leclerc 4th, Piastri 3rd, Hamilton 2nd, Max Verstappen topping the time sheets at number 1. But then we went for these final laps, and everyone found incredible pace on their final lap. So here is our final top 10 as it stands. Gasly, 10th. Alonso, 9th. Albon, 8th. Hamilton, 7th. Russell, 6th. Sainz, 5th. Leclerc, 4th. Piastri, 3rd. Norris, 2nd. Max Verstappen, 1st. Incredible work. Not only from the Williams team, but also the McLaren team. I mean, Sargent didn't make it through, but Albon did in 8th place. I think the Williams has even more pace than that, and I think he'll be a good one to watch tomorrow. But yeah, the story of the day is the McLaren team. P2, P3, great stuff. And the separation between the two of them, 0.131. That's how close these two guys are. And, I know you're supposed to only celebrate Norris, but Piastri hasn't got all the upgrades yet, and Norris has, and Piastri is just a 10th behind him. I think if we had all the upgrades on both cars, I think the McLarens would be the other way around, but that doesn't matter for now. Just a great performance from them, a team that have had their struggles over the last decade. They've had random high moments, but mostly lows. Hopefully this is a step in the right direction. They look like it is a step in the right direction. They were easily the second best team on the grid today. Easily. You could even say that they were the best team on the grid because one half of the Red Bulls didn't even make it into Q2. Just really impressive stuff from the McLaren team tomorrow. I look forward to seeing what they can do tomorrow. A podium is not even... That's not even wishful thinking. That should be expected. After the performance they put in today, after the performance from Austria, as looking at their numbers in the practice sessions, I think a podium is easily possible for the McLaren team tomorrow. I look forward to seeing it. Yes, some other things to run through there. Russell beating Hamilton, very impressive. The Ferrari guys are very close together, not much time separated there. As I said, Albon looking really good. Aston Martin, not necessarily in the position they want to be. 9th and 12th, is it? 9th for Alonso, and then Stroll, who's in 12th. I think they would hope to be a little bit better than that. Gasly outqualifies his teammates. Great stuff up and down the field, and I think tomorrow will be a fantastic race. We'll into something really special tomorrow, and hopefully there won't be any Just Stop Oil protesters, but I imagine there will be. Can't wait to see them. Anyway, that's it for qualifying today, and what a great session it was. Make sure you subscribe, I'll say it properly, because tomorrow we'll have coverage for F3, F2 and F1, so that'll be all kinds of fun. I will see you there. Until then, have a lovely rest of your Saturday. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.